I've made some notes. I'll just keep it open for whatever it's worth.
Not scary at all.
Right. Thank you for being here today. And Gaurav, we've been chatting backstage, but so let's dive straight into our topic for the day, speculative fiction. The title of this session is what interested me, first of all, as I was telling you before, because it's taken from Philip K. Dick's seminal novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And that novel talks about a future, which is where a nuclear war has happened. People have the rich people have moved to Mars. For those of you who haven't read it, you must read it if you like science fiction. It looks like a very different society, and it was later made into a brilliant Ridley Scott film, Blade Runner. And I was telling you, when I was rewatching Blade Runner very recently, I realized that cars are flying there, people have moved to Mars, and it's a Los Angeles which you can't recognize. Except he was showing 2018, and I was watching the film in 2019, and that struck me that when we talk about speculative fiction or dystopia, we often think it's far in the future, but the future is already here, except it just doesn't look like that. So how do you look at speculative fiction? Because I know you delve into fantasy, you delve into, of course, you have written about the Mahabharata, we'll get to that. But when we talk about dystopia or a dystopian future or a dystopian society, how do you perceive it as a writer?
I think when it comes to a dystopian future, if you log on to Twitter on a Monday morning, you see it happen for real, right? But apart from that, I've always felt that science fiction writers have been soothsayers. Like, I think we were just discussing that. Like, yes, a lot of the way they saw the world, with flying cars, might not have come true unless Elon Musk gets his funding, okay? But the themes they spoke of, where, like for example, in this book itself, where empathy is something which is curated rather than cultivated, where the distinction between what is artificial and what is true is just a very thin line. I think all of that has come true. We are living in the imaginations of the science fiction writers of the 1950s. And in a way, that's very scary because none of them imagine happy worlds, right? And when you see the division which technology is causing these days, right? For example, if I may just like slightly segue, when it comes to AI, now the buzzword is AI everywhere, apart from Gautam Gambhir. So when it comes to AI, outside India, if there is even a slight eyebrow which has been AI generated, the reading community will cancel you, right? In India, on the other hand, we are just walking hand in hand into a future where AI is replacing artists, right? One of Amish's recent books that has released looks to have a very horribly drawn ChatGPT cover. Even when it comes to, I just got a proposal by Geo Hotstar. I love taking names, I'm a lawyer so I can defend myself. But it's that, can you please promote the Mahabharata show on Geo Hotstar, which is completely AI generated, right? And you don't want to do that. I can't understand why we are so accepting of a technology that is seeking to replace any kind of human creation. And then you start realizing, wait, you are living in a dystopian present rather than a future.
Since you already named Geo, I think I can take a cue from that and ask you, is that you think that it's a cause and effect thing where, because we have made internet so cheap in India, which is why everyone has a phone and they can afford internet so easily in India, anywhere in the country, which is why they're more prone to use AI and it's being misused left, right, and center right now. But do you think that's one of the causes that's doing it?
Definitely. I think, if you go to schools now and they speak about evils of democracy, it's that everyone has an opinion, right? It's the same thing with AI. Now, it's amazing. Like, AI is like fire. It's a good servant, but a bad master. So applying that logic, it's great. Like someone who cannot create art and just wants to create something for their D&D campaigns or just to see themselves in an army suit. My father does that on Facebook. What if I wear a army soldier fighting for Ukraine, right? And it generated a picture of him wearing those army stuff. Fine, that's personal use and that's okay. But when you are converting this into something which is taking away human creativity and you're substituting it with an electric sheep or an artificial experience, then that becomes a big, big problem because you're not able to distinguish anymore between what is real and what is not real.
There was recently, I was reading an AI film festival that happened in Bombay, where, and there was a lot of criticism around it that was happening, online at least. And some filmmakers, I'm not a lawyer, I can't take names, so but some very popular faces from the film and the OTT industry, they supported that event where filmmakers, I believe, I haven't seen those films, but I believe they made films using AI, and they were doing an entire festival of that. Except they put out a trailer which looked exactly like a Miyazaki a film. I'm sure the story is theirs or not theirs, but when it comes to animation, you lift the style of an established artist like that, and then you call it your own art. It's strangely satirical, right? It doesn't seem like reality anymore, except we are living it.
Fortunately, so far, all the AI products have been extremely cheap in terms of their quality and content. Because if you take, I'll just take two examples which are live right now. One is the Mahabharata show on Hotstar, which is completely AI generated, and the other
So
one
it's
is
an animated show which is completely done by...
AI generated, and they are very proudly admitting this that we have not used a single human technician. Okay, and then you have the Kurukshetra on Netflix, which is again a work of human creators. And the Netflix show has done tremendously well, and no one has really batted an eyelid at the Hotstar show. So that kind of shows you that so far, the AI experience has not been able to substitute the human experience. Because the stories that we come up with are something which comes out of our own experiences, our scars, our wounds. AI doesn't have that. AI is too much about perfection and M dashes. So that way we get a little lucky.
I'm an editor, I do use a lot of M dashes. It's a tragedy because as an editor, I'm prone to using M dashes. I love M dashes, I defend them to death. And now I'm having to reduce the usage of M dashes because otherwise software is telling me that M dashes are, it's being used by, it's being caused by AI usage.
I think if someone reads Sons of Darkness now, they'll think it's ChatGPT generated because of the number of M dashes that are there. A lot of people interrupt a lot in my story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have no other way of showing apart
Yeah.
from M dashes, but yeah, it is what it
And
is.
they're lovely. They look lovely. Let's get to you've mentioned Mahabharata already, and your work is heavily inspired and influenced by Mahabharata. Tell me how it began. Like were you a young boy when you read the Mahabharata and it did something to you? Why did you? I mean, I know one of the things you said, and I'd let you speak about it, is that India didn't have its own Game of Thrones, or India didn't have its own Lord of the Rings, and you wanted to change that when you started writing your book. But how did you choose Mahabharata as the backdrop to tell such a story, or reinterpret it in your own way? Why did you choose Mahabharata? Or what was your first interaction with the epic?
I think my first interaction with the epic was, in most cases, my grandmother, who, they pass on these stories as heirlooms, and of course she told me stories which were rooted in our tradition, Odisha tradition. As you know, these myths or these epics have different variations in different villages, different cities, different states. Ravan is the father of Sita in the south, while he's the main antagonist in the north. So you have very different variations. And then ultimately I came to Amachitra Katha. So these stories have always spoken to me because the thing with Mahabharata or Ramayana is, or Mahabharata rather, it's an itihasa, which means it's a list of events that take place. It's history, as per what itihasa means. I really wanted to get into the minds of the characters, especially the villainous characters, so-called villainous characters. As a lawyer, what happens is we often defend the two sides of the same case, right? Depending on whichever client is paying me more, I'll take up that case. And accordingly, I have represented both sides, which makes you realize that life is not black and white, but 50 shades of gray. Now, when it comes to that, I realized that there were a lot of these characters in Mahabharata who I felt, if they had won the war, Mahabharata would be a different story. And around this time, I don't know, The Fault in My Stars or whatever it was, I came to watch Game of Thrones, and I was absolutely blown away with it, like so many viewers have been. And I immediately thought, okay, I'm sure there must be a book like this in an Indian setting, which I would love to read. Now I would love to see what Shakuni thinks of, all the mind games he's playing. Shakuni for me is better than Tyrion Lannister, right? But here's the problem: I didn't find that book, right? In my law school, in fourth year, we have to compulsorily read Toni Morrison. That's
In your
a
law school?
beautiful thing. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So it's BA, LLB, so we have arts courses as well. And I came across this Toni Morrison quote there, and I'm paraphrasing it here, that if the book you want to read is not written, it's your duty to write it. And I'm a very Bollywood person, so everything kind of cinematically aligns in my head. I got my job on day zero, and I thought, okay, you know what? Let me try and build this world. I can't torture my bosses, so I might torture my characters, and it's a therapeutic release for me. But one thing led to
You
another.
sound like a closeted sociopath.
Oh, definitely. I think my father is very concerned that why do I keep killing my characters, and he's so happy that I chose to become an author because he thought my alternate career would be Ted Bundy. So I think by that measure, I definitely survived.
Taken every name in you could today already. You have.
So I think that's what took me there. But actually, that brings me back to the electric sheep conversation. Electric sheep, the whole idea with electric sheep is it's an artificial entity, and we speak about empathy and how empathy might be different. That's what the whole book is about. This brings me to, I don't know how many of you have heard of Ami Gantantra. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but she has written this beautiful book called Mahabharata Unraveled, which, again, Bloomsbury has published it. We share that publisher. Now, this book is all about, it has taken one of the oldest editions of Mahabharata. She's a Sanskrit scholar. She gives that caveat in her books that, okay, I am picking up this translation, and she uses that as a very solid piece to say, no, Karna was always bad. Like, no, this variation does not exist. People have made Karna into a tragic hero when that is not the original case in that story. Now, this, for me, is something which is made of marble, in the sense you are not allowing empathy to be here. You are interpreting myths as a statue which cannot be changed, when myths, I feel, is something which is made out of clay. Because if we believe her edition, that you are erasing the entire southern identity of interpreting Ravan as Sita's father. Who is to say their story is not correct? Because no one has the original, right? So I think when I bring it into this context, and when I was researching about electric sheep and empathy, I realized that when you go about saying that this is my version of truth and this is the only version of truth that exists, you are not having that empathy, which according to Philip K. Dick, or that religion, Mercerism, is the only thing which makes us intrinsically human. This empathy, this feeling of happiness, joy of others. Sorry, again, I'm a lawyer, so we go in long monologues.
We want you to. We want you to. One of the things that, of course, fascinates me as a reader primarily about speculative fiction is the world building. And I keep coming back to that because that fascinates me to no end. I keep going back to because Electric Sheep, because Blade Runner, that how the world around us doesn't change like probably science fiction writers of the past or filmmakers of the past showed it to us, except the realities have changed in the same way. It just doesn't look that way. When we read some of the more popular or seminal works of speculative fiction or science fiction, I think somebody said it very nicely that the difference, science fiction comes under the umbrella of speculative fiction, and so does horror, psychological. There can be so many other genres that come under. But what defines it is that in science fiction you focus on the science, but in speculative fiction you focus on the person, and that always impacts me very much. But what I was going to ask you is about world building. That when we read, say, a 1984 or A Brave New World, we picture a world which is very different from ours. So the threat doesn't seem too imminent. Whereas, as we were discussing backstage, those threats are, right around us. Right. So when you went around building the world in your books, which was, of course, based on the Mahabharata, but you did an extensive world building yourself. How did you approach that, and how important is world building for you as a writer?
I think world building is one of the most important elements because this is what I found personally missing in the books I was reading in Indian literature. And one of the reasons for this is, and I'll give you an example. When I read Game of Thrones, I know the kingdoms, Westeros, Winterfell, better than I probably know the districts of Odisha, right? Because this is what literature does. It creates such a beautiful world that the world is a character of its own. Stephen King does this best. He wrote Salem's Lot, and in his interview he said, I wanted Salem's Lot to be another character. So he infuses the world also with a lot of characters. But let's say, I don't know how many of you have watched Bahubali. We will remember Bahubali, we'll remember the characters, but if someone is asked, what was the kingdom's name? They might be able to say Mahishmati, but again, it's something which doesn't strike your mind immediately. People who have read Immortals of Meluha might know Ayodhya and Meluha, but what are the characteristics of those cities? It's not something which immediately pops up. Yeah. because world building has always been secondary. Most of the books that I grew up reading in Indian literature specifically were dialogues, 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 maybe one line of world and dialogues, dialogues, dialogues. And that is what I wanted to change because I love reading about the description of worlds, be it in Tolkien. I mean, Tolkien describes every branch, maybe not to that detail. He's a giant in this thing, and I'm just a small
You
guy.
also divided almost, you begin the book like pretty much like Game of Thrones, almost like houses. I mean, in this case, that was a conscious effort, right?
Oh, definitely, because I love the idea that you know of houses and be it Harry Potter houses or be it Game of Thrones, something like your family kind of gives you an intrinsic attribute. So I wanted Magad, Mathura, Hastana to all have very different characteristics. So Magad has been an empire. Now Hastana is a confederacy of kingdoms, so that automatically assigns it a slightly different nature when it comes to how people live there. Mathura is said to have practiced democracy way before Athens did, because it used to have republic system. So I thought, okay, wait, that must bring something different to the way people must be living in that country. So I thought, okay, I really want to get these elements out, and I don't know, I really enjoyed creating world because you know I think it's a Thanos complex. You feel like you can just snap your thumb and recreate worlds, and I just felt like that, you know, rather than Oppenheimer where you destroy worlds, I want to create worlds. So I think that was the element of world building which I really liked. So.
Because I work in publishing, I have to ask you this. How easy or difficult was it to convince a publisher to take a chance on a book like this? And how did you go about publishing this book?
I think it is easier for me to convince a judge to give bail to someone rather than convince a publisher to
I'll
take
take
up
that as a compliment.
epic fantasy. Because this was specifically the case in India because thick books are discriminated against. They're body shamed. Okay? The idea was that, okay, the story is lovely, but can you split the first book into two? Which horrified me because Sons of Darkness is a very little thing compared to a Game of Thrones in terms of word count. And the idea is that, I just saw Dhurandhar last night. Okay. Dhurandhar is a 3.5 hours movie. It feels like it's only 1 hour because the storytelling is so good that you don't feel time pass. It's the same thing with good big books as well. Like, I mean, I don't know if my book is good, but the books which I have read, which are thick, it just doesn't feel like it that, okay, you have been reading a tome for like a long, long time.
You want to tell the audience a little bit about your book? Like, if somebody doesn't know?
So I'm the author of Sons of Darkness and Dance of Shadows. It's basically a reimagination of Mahabharata from the perspective of its villains, Shakuni, Shishupal. Not a lot of people know this, but Eklavya was also technically a villain in the story. And with a lot of my characters, so it's a what-if version of Mahabharata. I have a very lengthy disclaimer at the starting, so if anyone wants to read this book, please read the disclaimer first. I think when I was coming out with this book, my father was very concerned that I would be pelted with stones. He was, in fact, very insistent that I change my name on the book. And then I realized something, that trolls can't read longer than WhatsApp forwards. And my book is very thick. So here is where thick books come to my rescue. Otherwise, I would have been in Big Boss by now, you know. That is the normal trajectory which my career would have taken. But again, coming back to the question of finding a publisher, it was really difficult. So initially, I went with a hybrid publishing system where with a small-scale publisher, I decided to partner up with them. But the book really did well outside India. And fortunately, Bloomsbury, US, and head of US, London, it caught their attention. And
How did it find an audience outside India? Like,
it was very like when the book came out, I went about finding booktubers in the fantasy community in UK, in Southeast Asia, in US.
it's massive there.
Yeah, it's really massive there. So I found them, I sent them emails telling them what they might like about this book, what are the different videos they have put up, and why it matches their favorites on the shelves. Yeah. And luckily, the personalized emails worked, and so they picked it up. And word of mouth, the power of word of mouth cannot be overstated, because that ultimately reached my agent, and he said, okay. And at the same time, I got a deal from a Russian publisher as well, that they want to translate my book into Russian. And so both of these things happened at the same time, and within 3 months, I terminated my contract with my existing publisher, who did not want to let go of my book. It was a very predatory deal. But again, I'm a lawyer, so no can do. Okay, so I got out of the contract very easily.
Does that publishing house still exist? Or?
Yeah, I think so. So I got out of the deal, and then here we are. I'm sitting here in front of you guys with a good publisher who's backing me, because I mean, it's difficult to survive as an author in India, just on author remuneration. But the thing is, as you guys know, Indian rupee has fallen so far, and I get my royalties in dollars, so that really, really helps.
Can you retire as a lawyer now?
Sorry?
Can you retire as a lawyer now, or is it not
Lawyers
enough
never
yet?
retire. That's the thing. I mean, if you see the best lawyers are all 70 years old, so I'm really looking forward to a very fruitful career when I get old. White hair like George R. R. Martin, but that's the idea.
If anyone of you have any questions, please just feel free to ask. Yes, of course. It's better if it's interactive. Can someone give him a mic, please?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks. Abhinav, the initial conversation about AI and is the concern about IP, or is it about that AI can do something that artists do? Because copying in Bollywood, that's existed. They've copied Hollywood movies, Korean movies, music as well. So is it mostly about IP?
No, it's definitely not about IP from the artistic point of view, because whatever AI has created in the world of literature so far has been absolute shit. Okay, so even if they do something, it's not going to sell. But the problem is, mediocre products keep getting, they are published, right? So you're taking away that space which should be given to human literature. Like, I'll give you an example. Now, Netflix has taken over HBO. Like, in 2 days before the deal got finalized, it has taken over WB. Why is it creating such a furor? Because Netflix, it creates great shows. I'm a big fan of Stranger Things, but for it, it's all about metrics. It will produce 100 shows per week, and it's okay if one succeeds. HBO, on the other hand, has a guaranteed success because they put a lot of thought into their work, right? It's the same thing when it comes to books like this. When you are having an AI written book, which just because an influencer has written it who has like 435 lakh followers, that book gets published, right? And then such kind of, now again,
Who's
I'm not
this?
trying
Who
to
are
be-
we talking about?
Sorry?
Since you're naming names.
It's a book based on Mahabharata. Okay. So, when the book kind of comes out, you are taking away that space. The book might sell, right? The book might sell, but it is taking away spots from someone who could have written a beautiful work. And anyway, there's a lot of complaint about literature not being an absolute beauty any longer.
But isn't it like painting and graphic design? Graphic design, when it came out, everybody was like computer aided, it's taking away something, but eventually it just becomes a tool. Some authors will use it, some would still prefer to write by themselves. And
Okay, so here
consumers
I'll give you an
or audience
example of the
choose-
Coldplay concert which took place in Mumbai, where someone called Jasleen opened up, right? Like opened the concert for Coldplay, okay? Now she's an auto-tune singer. So when she actually performed it live, it brought down India's majesty in front of everyone because it was, the whole world criticized it, right? Kudos to her. So here it's the question where you're using the AI tools as a tool, that's okay. But if you're replacing, even the graphic example you took, it's designers who use the text to create something. There's a human element involved. But AI, as we understand it, if you notice the Geo Hotstar Mahabharata, it is AI generated completely. You go to Midjourney, you create images which you have no hand at except writing the prompt, right? Yes, it will come into picture, but that's the whole thing, right? If you read all these science fiction novels, it's a lost cause. Our rebellion is a lost cause, but we will still rebel because we stand for human creativity and the beauty it brings into picture. Because otherwise, just because tech makes it easy does not make it beautiful, is my opinion.
I'll add to that a little bit from the publishing point of view, because we always have to deal with this question as well, that where do you draw the ethical line? But there's a very old saying which I absolutely love, that every story that had to be told has already been told, but not by you. So when we are doing something, when a person is doing something on their own, what he was talking about, human creativity or the human imagination, it's something that we may be reinterpreting an existing story or an existing idea, but we are still putting our thoughts into it instead of just a prompt, which I think differentiates these two things. And it's important that we retain that creativity. When authors ask me today that how far can I use AI in my research, I say you can obviously use it for research, but don't use what AI is bringing at you or up at you and then just paste it somewhere else, because that's the same as the plagiarism conversation that used to happen 10 years ago. Because that material is not essentially yours. What I was saying earlier about the AI film festival that was happening and the trailer that came out, the visuals look like if you showed it to a person who had no idea who it's made by, they would say it's Miyazaki because they look exactly like the same. So that's lifting someone's work and not reinterpreting it.
I mean, to add to that, like there's also, again, this time I won't take a name, but there's a very popular influencer whose book has been winning awards because of Popular Choices Awards and
One more name.
So if you, what I read about it, I did not read the book, but the acknowledgement starts with the line, I don't know how to write acknowledgement, so I'm using ChatGPT to create an acknowledgement section. So naturally, that creates a bit of trust issues that if you don't know how to write acknowledgement, then I don't know how have you written a book, right? So it creates that sort of a template.
You should have just written thank you to no one.
Yeah.
That's it.
So yeah, I mean, sometimes it's too good to be true, these things, but you know, it is what it is.
Anyone else has a question? Oh, there already so many questions.
Hi, this is Jyotsna here, Gourav. So, absolutely loved your book. I think it's one of the best world building kind of books to come out of India. And my question is because, it's a very rich book, right? Like you have Jarasan, you have Shishupal, and all these imagined characters as well added to the mix. But, I have a devil's advocate kind of a question. When you look at Game of Thrones, the last book is not out yet because the world building maybe was too extreme for George R.R. Martin to finish the entire series, right? Winds of Winter is still in Winterfell or somewhere else. So my question is, how do you not go overboard with the world building? Because I think maybe this will end in another maybe 2-3 books, the entire series. But how do you not go overboard? Like how do you ensure that you have a strict boundary when it comes to the world building and the story as well?
Okay, so firstly, when it comes to George R. R. Martin, I have an age factor benefit over him, luckily, a little bit. So there is that. But coming to going overboard, I think I always go overboard. If you look at how my second book is far thicker than my first one, because I love doing it. Ultimately, the book that ultimately goes for edit, I know I have to slash down a lot because I feel really sad. The thing about world building is it's the iceberg method. Like if you have thought a lot in your head, you just show the tip of the iceberg, right? There are elements which will make the reader feel, acha, there's something deep here. And it makes sense because there's a rooted structure beneath that tip of the iceberg. So I will voluntarily Titanic myself over this iceberg and just really immerse myself in this world, right? So this is what helps me. But again, it's a big challenge always because, as I said, as a lawyer, we write very long drafts. Our special leave petitions are easily 200 pages when they could be done in 20. It's the same thing with books as well. My word count, like the last book, which I just finished some time back, I thought, okay, this time I'm going to write a very thin book. I'm going to write a book in 76,000 words. That's a challenge to myself.
That's not a thin book.
Sorry?
That's not a thin book.
Yeah, I ended up writing a 176,000 word book. So, it's just, clearly I can't contain myself, but I think that's okay because I want to write for readers like you who are readers like me, who'd love to read these worlds. And yeah, if I find this small circle of people who enjoy these worlds, that's great for me. Because even in the second book, I get to explore Northeast India, which is something I really wanted to explore, I didn't want to create a situation where Mary Com takes Priyanka Chopra as the main lead, right? So I really wanted to make Assam, ancient Assam, which has such a rich history when it comes to Rakshasa. I mean, Ravan just abducted one queen. Narkasur abducted 16,102 princesses and women, who ultimately Krishna symbolically married. Anyway, sorry, we can go into that.
All of them?
Yeah. So because the idea was that they were, they have been abused by Narkasur probably. So it was a symbolic marriage with them so that no one questions their virtue. So Narkasur, and plus the best part, like Sons of Darkness cover has Satyabhama. If you do not know this, though we have an Indian goddess of war, you don't really have mortal women fighting battles. Satyabhama fought Narkasur in a single combat. Right? Yeah, we used to do. It's come back. It's come back. So Satyabhama fought Narkasur in a one-on-one duel. And when I read this, why are we so I mean, it's amazing. Radha and Rukmini, brilliant. But Satyabhama is the OG badass. And I thought she should not be a footnote character anymore. And if I could give spotlight to her, I personally would love it. I would love Maleficent. I love these anti-heroines who are not damsels in distress, but damsels who cause distress. And that's always been the guiding light for me. So, yeah.
I had a quick question because we are talking about speculative fiction, and of course, I know we delve into fantasy in your case a lot. What speculative fiction also has historically done is they often pick a world that's alien to us, but they tell a very contemporary story. They talk about contemporary problems or contemporary issues or what we are experiencing currently, except told in a very different setting. So when you were writing your book, were you also trying to address issues of of the present, or were you also trying to, in some way, speak of the present? Is the question I had.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, this actually brings me to a very controversial issue in my book, not for Indians, but for Firangs. See, when we reimagine epics, right, we are mythological DJs. You know, we add current perspective to what we write about in terms of. Thank you. That's a very rock star feeling I'm getting. Okay, so. This is Swadesh. Okay, Bijli. Marital rape is not criminalized yet. This is a petition which people are still fighting in Supreme Court for. This is as a concept is alien to any reader in UK and US. I was very personally involved with the PIL, which is currently pending in the Supreme Court. So when Draupadi, you know, who was, I mean, by current standards, an underage princess, married off to 5 husbands, right? Krishna came up with a solution after 1 year that Draupadi will have one husband for 1 year, no other husband can interfere, and it will be a rotation policy later on. But at the start, you did not have such an arrangement, right? I do not know how many of you have seen Matrubhumi. It's a beautiful movie based on a similar concept where Tulip Joshi, amazing actress, was married off to 5 guys, right? So I brought in this concept. The reason why marital rape criminalizing is so difficult because a lot of women in the rural areas don't even know that they can say no, right? So this becomes a troublesome concept. I want to reflect that, not in terms of direct explanation of what is happening, but a show that where consent has not even been informed that you have it, like you have the ability to say no, what are the ramifications of it, right? So Indian readers, a lot of women readers of India really resonated with it. I got beautiful DMs saying that thank you for reflecting this. This is a very nuanced topic which we have not spoken about. But a lot of US teenager girls, US TikTok suddenly went up in arms saying that this is so mean. Why is Draupadi being subjected to this? They do not know I'm taking from a myth or from our epics. They are horrified by what happened. And they thought this is men writing women, you know, like why are we writing this? But when I had a discussion with them in an interview, they realized no, the South Asian perspective is so different on this from what they are used to. So this is what literature is supposed to do. It brings in different perspective so that you understand that what is normal for you might not be normal in another country, right? And that led to a conversation, and then there was a bit of understanding. But I got review bombed for a bit by the book talk audience till they figured out what the thought behind introducing this aspect was. So that does happen. Yeah, I'm so sorry if I goes into a sensitive topic, but very important. But you understand like how it works because for us, I want to deal with this. I want to reflect a current problem that I have been personally associated with, and I just want to show that. The first part of the question, I took 4 years to write this book because I never thought I will ever finish it. This was just a hobby that I took part in. It was a therapeutic release for me. Had I known it would take me 4 years to write, on day one, I wouldn't have written this book. So the destination was never the problem. Journey was so beautiful, right? I had no idea that I will ever publish this book. So when I started looking for publishers, this is when I was confronted with reality. That the reason why epic fantasy does not exist as it is premature is not because writers are not writing it, because there is not, you don't have the infrastructure to support this kind of thing. Especially in today's generation where attention economy has shortened so much because of reels, where if you don't create a hook within the first 5 seconds, your reel will be scrolled, right? It's the same thing with books as well. So the book's length is kind of, unless it's non-fiction, if it comes to fiction, you can't really go beyond a lot of words in India. That's not the case outside. What has changed over time? Yes, you have a lot of epic fantasy movies that have done well, especially post Bahubali. So now the same director Rajamouli is taking a chance with anime as well. PS1, which
Not
did
using AI.
not using AI at all, very important. In fact, he has used the directors of Arcane, and I can't wait to watch that. Then you have PS1, which came out, which finally dealt with rulers who are not from Rajasthan, right? It's something which India was starving for. I'm really waiting for a movie on Kalinga's rulers, but PS1 did well. So once something does well, it is when the doors open to other fans. When I started writing, and when I was published, I used to write this, that how Goodreads, I don't know how many of you know Goodreads, is basically a forum where all the books are ranked. They will write top South Asian authors. 9 out of 10 authors will be from USA. They will be Indian origin Americans, right, who have never seen India. They won't get this perspective out. And I was very vociferously against this, that a lot of film publishers get their diversity quota token done by selecting them. But we all know the big difference between Kash Patel, our director of FBI, and versus Indians, right? I mean, we have different perspectives of things. So I think that was very important to bring it about. And Jyotsna, thank you so much for writing the book. I'm hoping George R. R. Martin appoints me as his heir to finish his book.
Contact him in the next week.
I met him, man.
Oh, you met him?
So, do we have time for 2 minutes?
Yeah, we have time. We just don't have electricity.
I'll be louder.
I'm looking at this very alarmingly. Isn't this the timer that's going on in front of us? Hi.
So, George R. R. Martin is the Dronacharya to my Eklavya, okay? In the sense I'd never met him, but I've always tried to ape him. I recently got a chance to meet him I was invited to the I'll wrap it up in 2 minutes. Done. So I was invited to Scotland for the Hugo's convention. That's like the Oscars of fantasy. I was not nominated, but I was like, I'm going to wear my Indian sherwani and carry the Indian colors, right? I heard George R. R. Martin is going to be there. I met all my other heroes, Joe Abercrombie, Scotland, everyone. George R. R. Martin, for all his wealth, cannot fill a form. So he has not filled the form for Hugo. So he's not allowed on any of the panels. So he was like a polar bear in the Arctic. Like he was just sighted and spotted. At this point of time, I have embarrassed myself and told every volunteer, please let me know if you find it. 5 days have passed. It's the 5th day. George R. R. Martin I gave up on that hope. And by the way, if you read Sons of Darkness' acknowledgement, which is not ChatGPT generated, the first line says, I would like to thank George R. R. Martin in brackets who I haven't met yet. This was a big dream for me. Lastly, I'm about to enter the award show and I'm really dressed to the nines. Okay, this is a pashmina shawl that I'm wearing, like some really. Someone messaged me, Gourav, and I'm sorry, Gourav, get your ass to Ulasa Bar. Like it's a bar where he's apparently there. Now this convention is taking place across like 5 freedom parks. Okay? And I have to run, and this is Scotland. Unfortunately, the wind is blowing against me. I'm running. I have to cross a bridge. This is very Shah Rukh Khan Mitwa film. Okay? My non-existent abs are hurting, okay? But I am running, I am not stopping. My shoes are also not meant for running. I'm looking at the message, and this is all recorded. Gourav, he's leaving the bar. Gourav, he's left the hotel. Gourav, he's walking out. Unfortunately, or fortunately, someone was recording the whole thing. They don't know me. They were recording George R. R. Martin.
I thought someone was recording you running.
No, I wish. I would have loved that scene. Okay? But no, they were recording George R. R. Martin, and he's walking, and suddenly this guy that kurta walks up to me. I have taken off my jacket, by the way. I hold his shoulder and say, 1 minute. And this is my chance. This is my chance to say something so profound to him that he appoints me as the heir, right? Or tell him what he, this was the chance to make an impression. I end up telling him, sir, you're everything. I'm just like, everyone started laughing. This is not a Julia Roberts moment. Okay? I am not proposing. Okay? And I'm like, did I just say that? People think I'm such an idiot. But luckily there were book reviewers around, like Jyotsna, who kind of amped my book and said, he's written the Indian Game of Thrones. Like, oh, that is so nice. And we had a bit of a conversation and someone took a picture. And then he handed me a Bharat Morghulis coin.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, this is so good.
Your proposal worked.
I think so. But I think we were heading in a different direction than what I wanted to go with. And I didn't even have my bag. So I didn't have my book, but I had this bag. Same bag. Okay? And sir, I've written this book. This is how I show him in that video. Right? But that was such a surreal moment for me as well, because I'm meeting someone who inspired me to that. And I hope I created an impression on him enough that in his will there is a name. GRM or GM a different thing. But the worst part was when I came back, my friends have taken this video, have added hearts to it, and put Pehla Nasha as a background track and made a reel out of it.
I think he's married to you, is it?
Yeah, probably. I hope so.
We've time for one more question, I think. Yeah, I think you should just ask.
Oh, fan fictions are great, man. Technically, my book is a fan fiction of Ved Vyasa's Mahabharata, right? If you look at it that way. And plus, when E.L. James wrote a fan fiction of Twilight, she created 50 Shades of Grey, right? So bring in your own imagination, twist it, and never know where the world might take you, right? Writing is such a personal thing; it should bring you joy. And if it is with established characters, that's okay. Third, in some. Oh, definitely not. I definitely write faster than him, for sure.
All right, I think that's it.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure. You have the mic on you, right? Thank you.
You done?
Yeah, this thing stopped. I thought.
I told you that was.
We still have time. Are there any questions?
Are there any more
I know
questions?
you guys have clapped for us.
Yes, so many questions.
Yeah, you have
You
done.
have clapped, or you can ask me.
Yes, yes.
Let's say.
This is an awkward
So also
situation.
will come and say, nahi, that then you will.
No, I love that question. Like what if the world came to an end 100 years later and my book is the only book that survives, which could be a reflection of the Mahabharata as it exists. First, I think the future generations will think, why have I put such a long disclaimer at the start? But apart from that, I think it's going to make the world think that if the past was like this, because I write Grimdark, which is like Anurag Kashyap world in a Sanjay Leela Bansali setting. So they will think, wow, people were really violent back in the day, and women were so powerful, and it might change history as we understand it, because in my book, women have a lot of agency, they are warriors, which might not be a reflection of the truth that exists. But this is I think this is the greatest example to show that what we trust as literature, might not be a reflection of history, right? Because that is what has survived. Mahabharata does not survive in its original edition, does not survive even a secondary edition. In law, we have primary evidence, secondary evidence, tertiary evidence is never trusted. We are not even in tertiary stage, nothing survives from that time. So it's quite possible that it might be an imagination of someone. Ramcharitra-manas was believed to be the OG Ramayana till you discovered something which was far older than that. A lot of people do not know this. Lakshman Rekha as a concept does not exist in Ramayana. It came from Kritibasi Ramayana, which is a Bengali version of Ramayana. Bengali version of Ramayana. Right? So here's the thing. Right. Yay! Bijli. So yeah, that's that. So whoa, yeah, I know it was like Bijli. So that's the thing, right? I think it changes a lot, and I think this question itself makes you reassess what we interpret to be the truths. A lot of people do not know this. Ashoka was Buddhist before he actually invaded Kalinga. But we do not know this because for the longest time we were believing Buddhist literature, which said that Ashoka transformed into a paragon of peace after he converted to Buddhism. So as and more excavations take place, our idea of what history is changes, right? And this is something which we should be open to, that history is malleable, which a lot of people don't agree to these days. Like one version of history is the correct version and no other version is true. But that's not how life works, alas. Any other questions? Yes.
Work on your mind while taking references from the mythology that people might get offended while writing? Does it work on your mind or you're not bothered?
Oh, yeah.
Have you been listening to him?
Don't give two damns. I'm like Raghuram from a roadie's audition, right? That's the approach I take to writing. But no, jokes apart, like once I finished writing, it did play a factor. As I said, I was considering a different name. But then, as I said, trolls have a very short attention span. I don't expect them to read beyond my author's note. They'll be too complicated for them. So yeah, my author's note feels like a wonderland of words by Shashi Tharoor in terms of all the complex words that has been used. That's a filter. So,
Yes,
but
we have to give him
Yeah.
the Oscar moment. We really have to.
thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Sayantan. Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for your patience. For waiting for the light to come back. I really, really, really appreciate it. To keep the flow going. This is seriously.